classic Splatterhouse was known for one thing, and its title should give you a clue. Borrowing blood-soaked, gross-out imagery from a particularly juicy subgenre of horror movies, the game focused foremost on delivering gore, with gameplay a distant second, securing itself a place in history largely based on shock value. Does the 2010 remake follow in its bloody footsteps? And if so, is it a bad thing?
You. Is it possible?
What the fuck is going on?
Thanks to a mad professor getting all necromantic with his girlfriend Jen, a mild-mannered metalhead named Rick finds himself bleeding all over the floor of a creepy mansion. After accepting an unholy alliance with an evil mask, Rick turns into a hulking mass of muscle in pure rage, ready to tear some demonic fiends a new one and get back his girl.
All that matters is the work, and the advancement of my knowledge of the frailties of human flesh.
Journals and audio recordings offer unneeded insight into a shallow story, but the idea of trading your humanity for power still comes across as creepy and thrilling on a basic level. The ancient mask, constantly mocking Rick in his plight and continually calling for more blood, delivers a sensible message to the player. Stop worrying about the plot and get on with the slaughter.
Never met a clown I didn't want to beat the living fuck out of. Okay, you raggedy little fucker. Let's see what you're made of.
Once the mask is glued to your face, Splatterhouse leads you through doors and dimensional portals to twisted environments inhabited by demons and dead things that you'll tear apart with your bare hands and whatever weapons you manage to get your mitts on. You'll sometimes have to run and jump through hoops to find more blood to spill, including some side-scrolling sections styled after the original games that are more novel than fun, but it's rare that you'll go very long without committing an act of horrifying violence. Beating hideous creatures to death is what the game is all about. Your alternative to the story, Survival Mode, focuses exclusively on the fighting. With the game's other elements feeling way underdeveloped in comparison, this turns out to be a pretty good idea. The journey from one freakish dimension to another is a little disjointed, with environments like a ruined cityscape seemingly tossed in at random. Many areas struggle to provide real defining moments. You'll feel as if you're being dragged by the arm from arena to arena, none of which exhibit any meaningful sense of place. Splatterhouse's idea of pacing involves ghostly barriers that block your progress until you kill everything in sight, or else dispatch a few enemies in a specific gruesome way. Sequences where you jump to highlighted platforms are overly difficult due to poor controls and bad angles. Indeed, anytime the game strays from face smashing, things take a dip for the worse. Apart from a few entertaining boss battles and some genuinely shocking scenes, Splatterhouse feels like one long 8-hour slog.
Shadow over Arkham rocks through the solar eclipse. Tell me you got backstage passes too, and I'll marry you right now.
Being a brutal freak show in shredded jeans can be surprisingly enjoyable thanks to a substantial combat system. Right off the bat, you have the ability to hold down a button and charge your attacks. New moves are paid for with the blood of your defeated enemies, and you're soon able to delay a devastating uppercut, unleash what feels like a spring-loaded shoulder charge, or line up a home run swing with the 2x4. You'll feel like you're really doing damage when you land these power hits, and you'll end up with quite a wide repertoire of violence as you upgrade. Ripping off the arm of some unspeakable horror to club another to death, or singling one out for a savage ground and pound, makes you feel like a brutal Hulk of cruelty and rage. Satisfying finishers have you literally crushing heads and ripping monsters in half. It's too bad the game doesn't provide more interesting setups to let loose with this huge potential for pain. Splatterhouse fails to make one fight feel different from the last. Surprises run dry as you quickly start to face the same handful of enemies repeatedly, and you rarely need to use specific strategies or even bother to defend yourself most of the time. A necro energy meter that builds as you bash lets you bust out powerful attacks that do mega damage to any target, or lash out at enemies to regain most of your health. With enough energy, you can transform into an even more ridiculously buff version of your already muscle-bound persona. In all, Splatterhouse succeeds at making you feel deadly and near invincible. It's just too bad that it doesn't put you in any scenarios that truly take advantage of its sound mechanics.
Something slimy this way comes. Yeah!
Sometimes it looks nice, other times it looks awful. Either way, it won't take you long to realize that the name fits the game. There's blood everywhere in Splatterhouse. Appropriately gross sound effects accompany the carnage and the extremely graphic finishers, although there are only so many of these pre-programmed kills, and their impact diminishes with repetition. Plus, there are some things you might not want to see more than once. Splatterhouse often looks fine at a glance, but the presentation doesn't withstand close scrutiny. Load times can drag, and things get twitchy and choppy from time to time. Helping to balance out the bad are the entertaining voice of the mask whispering disgusting somethings in your ear, a solid heavy metal soundtrack, and sexy photos of Rick's girlfriend Jen that serve as the game's artificial, value-extending collectibles.
My hero. Come here and get your reward.
Sure, it's tasteless and more than a little creepy, but a bloody chunk of horror is routinely served with a slice of cheesecake for good reason. What's good for B movies is good for B games.
You want to come with me to the West Mansion?
Splatterhouse successfully exploits its grisly horror aesthetic by linking it to aggressive and cathartic gameplay, but fails to build a genuinely good game around the central idea. Copious amounts of blood and gore manage to obscure some of its failings, but never enough to allow you to fully ignore them. The resulting experience can provide some cheap thrills, but it's hard to recommend it wholeheartedly.
Until Jen's back safe in your arms, you're mine.